Now tell us about the logistics of the walk, because I think a lot of people here, you're going to be walking that huge distance across so many years, and how on earth are you going to do that? So will you be walking the entire time?
Basically, I've been doing a lot of work on the logistics. We're working on a 10-kilometer day formula. So the plan is for every day that we walk 20 kilometers, we get a day off. Be it to rest, be it to work in a community, etc., etc. So we have that ability to change the sort of time program, if you will, as the walk proceeds. So we can decide as a group, let's walk for 2 weeks, so we can spend 2 weeks at this community. For people to come and take part, they can fund themselves privately. But to walk across Africa really is not a costly exercise as an individual. The costs come in with, as you say, logistics, support vehicles and all that. So at the moment we're looking for people to sponsor, not necessarily sponsor us, but sponsor their time. We have had reception of people saying, well, I wouldn't mind driving across Africa for 4 years as your support vehicle. So although a project like this needs sponsorship and all that, and we've got all the means to achieve it, we're trying to avoid it as much as possible to maintain that sense of, organicness.
Yeah.
That, well, we don't need to depend on money to do something this great, kind of thing. So anyone is welcome to take part, to come and have a meeting with us to discuss whether they're walking, we're going to have to man an office in Cape Town while we're walking, So there's many, many different ways to get involved, and it's really, not that difficult.
How many support vehicles do you need, and what kind of items would they have on board?
We're looking at basically one support vehicle for every 6 to 10 people. We're actually going to be looking at this in greater detail immediately after this meeting. We're going to Ayala, who's walking with us, and we're going to be speaking about this particular thing. And maybe breaking the group down, because Ayala's, my original vision was about 40 people leaving from Cape Town. Ayala just mentioned now she sees maybe a couple of hundred. So,
wow.
It's all really, at the end of the day, down to the grace of God, how it's going to happen and how many people are going to walk. But talking about maybe splitting the group into groups of 6 or 8 people, or maybe 4 people, who will together organize their own support, etc. So we're looking at all the options at the moment. And, we've got 331 days left before we start to walk.
You're starting March 21st,
March the 21st.
2016.
Yes.
Wow.
So we've got quite a lot to work out, but thankfully it all seems to be fitting into place rather perfectly already at this time.
Now I want to talk about the idea itself. I know we mentioned it a little bit, but how did it really come about? What was the driving force behind this idea?
I think David would be better to answer that, but for me, it's an interfaith project, so we welcome diverse religions. We've got Maasai walking with us. There's a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew. There's we're trying to get as many as possible. That was one of the primary goals because of the religious wars you have, and at the moment it's a big problem in the world. But David can definitely tell you more about that.
Well, at the same time as I'm organizing this, I'm also working for the International Institute of Peace Studies and Global Philosophy. And through that, the international philosophers for peace have a common sort of idea that they put out, is that the real jihad in the world today, or the real holy war, is not between brothers or sisters on the other side of the river. It's within our own selves, between ignorance and wisdom. So finding ways to be able to get people from that community to interact and do something in harmony with people of the community on the opposite side of the road or the river or whatever, and finding ways to, where we find differences, actually celebrate our differences, but even more celebrate our similarities at the end of the day, because at the end of the day we're all really cousins. And what are we doing here? We're all just really walking each other home. And it's 2015 now, and we've tried so many methods in the last few years to try and create peace, and even ponder the use of thunder in all sorts of ways and forms to create peace. But it hasn't worked. So we need to explore new opportunities and find ways of actually working together and
encouraging engagement between communities, almost.